The debate over a carbon pricing plan has stepped up a gear, with mining giant Rio Tinto asking for more generous compensation and industry protection. Rio's Australian Managing Director, David Pever, warns a carbon price could be disastrous for industry in a downturn. Meanwhile, one of Australia's biggest renewable energy companies appears to have turned a corner in making alternative energy pay its own way. Here's Michael Troy.
As the debate over a carbon price gets louder, renewable energy is quietly closing the price gap on traditional forms of power generation.
When you take the cost of black power plus the cost benefit you get from the renewable energy certificate you generate, we're going to get very close to parity.
One of Australia's top 3 renewable energy providers, CBD Energy, says in New South Wales, coal-fired power has jumped to around $35 per kilowatt hour due to coal price rises and the floods cutting supply, making wind power much more attractive.
We think that having Chinese turbines, Chinese banking, will enable us to get very close to it. We think we'll have...
In the 6 months to December, CBD Energy's turnover was up from $20 million to $175 million. Part of the reason was due to a bounce back in the domestic market for solar panels, despite reductions in subsidies and feed-in tariffs.
Our typical market is not eastern suburbs or North Shore, it is mortgage belt territory that are installing these solar installations, and they're doing it because they see that energy prices are going to continue to escalate and they can't afford it.
The company's share price is rising too, up 70% in 3 weeks.
Well, they obviously had a fairly poor half year up till December, but I think now everybody feels that's behind them and they're going to have a much more successful second half year and from here on.
CBD is also in final discussions for a joint venture with a Chinese company to supply $3.5 billion worth of wind generating capacity here, but say such projects need policy stability.
Chinese are very much concerned about policy settings in this country, and I think the way that the carbon tax plays out and the federal government playing around with the solar rebate scheme is going to send loud messages around the world.
The Australian Managing Director of Rio Tinto, David Pever, was also sending out messages today with an article in the Australian newspaper about the carbon price debate. He fears the mining industry could be disadvantaged without a global agreement on carbon, which he describes as a distant mirage. With the Coalition and Labor at loggerheads, former Howard government minister and now chairman of CBD Energy, Mark Vaile, declined to suggest a joint solution.
No gratuitous advice to either the government or the opposition on this issue. I mean, it is obviously it's a controversial issue given the balance between the interests of doing something in terms of carbon abatement, but also doing something in terms of managing the impact of that on Australian industries so we don't disadvantage them.
Another former Liberal politician and shareholder, John Valder, believes despite the uncertainty, the future is bright for the renewable energy industry.
But if you take even a medium, let alone a longer view, I mean, you'd think anyone in solar energy has got it made, but there will be bumps along the way.
CBD Energy hopes to finalise its biggest deal, the wind power Chinese joint venture, within a few months.